a genius. I learned so much. I'm never paying
So-
for a margarita again.
Yeah.
No.
So on that vein, how long would you say you've been under Orion's wing for now? If we could go to the origins of the Orion-Elie connection, which must go pretty deep, as
Apparently.
people would imagine.
We didn't know that, how deep it went.
What do you mean?
Were y'all separated at birth, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
By about 8 years, but
Separated. Well, okay, so it's very likely that there was a point when I was around 8 to 10 years old that I was at a camp that Orion was
Really?
a counselor at. Yeah, and we put this together much later on called
Man.
Living Earth Camp.
yeah.
And
I actually asked him if he was the kid who punched me in the throat, because
I guess some kid punched him in the throat, but
it
that wasn't me.
It happened.
I
It was
vaguely
not me.
remember, but yeah. So we were like we were there, you know,
the same
but
time.
at the same time. But I was 8, and then yeah, I at the end of high school, I graduated in 2018, I think. I did this recording session with some friends, and there was this dude sitting in the back, and I was like, hi, you know. And then I just started seeing him at every restaurant I went to. He was at Bodo's like every time I went to Bodo's, like all over the place. And so eventually, like, we just like, it reached a point where we were like, okay, we've now like run into each other
probably talk.
so many times that we should like, and at music and arts, like music stores and restaurants, I was like, okay, this dude is hanging out at the same music stores and the same restaurants as I am.
Meant to be.
It bodes well.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you want to join
So
my
you guys
band?
didn't talk at the recording session. That
I think I said hi,
okay.
but he was standing in the other room, and this was like I had just moved. I was like probably 3 months into moving back to Charlottesville, and so I was like sitting there, just observing the engineer and like watching how he worked and trying to learn myself. And I think Elie was standing in the live room for most of it, so we were kind of separated. And I was just getting to know people. But yeah, I asked him to like start playing in my band and do some recording with me, and he sent a talent scout to a show, which was really funny.
That's not
No.
not true. My talent scout, a friend of mine, sent herself to the show
Nope.
and did the scouting.
And
Okay.
showed up, and the first thing she said was, "I'm here to see how good the band is, to see if Elie Bashkow should play in it." I was like, all right,
Well,
I like that he takes himself seriously, man. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
I was like, you guys go check out the show, maybe see. Like, it was like
So what was this
Came out strong.
person's like
a
title?
friend,
Okay.
a friend of mine, you know.
Yeah. A friend of
Oh,
a friend.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I was in Cuba at the time, because I went there.
Seattle? Cuba. Yeah.
No, Seattle was later.
Either or. Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty similar places,
Yeah.
you know. Seattle,
Coffee.
Cuba. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the missing
coffee.
link.
There's cars in both of them.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, like the big thing about playing with Elie and just like collaborating and making music with him, I don't even really see it as like that kind of relationship. I just see it as like I'm very sensitive to the people around me who bring something out of me musically and add something to my music, and I feel like I look for sensitive people, like sensitive musicians that can respond, like, because a lot of our shows, like if you've seen an Orion and the Melted Crayons show, there's a lot of improv that occurs, and you need people who listen and are sensitive to do
No,
that.
exactly
Yeah.
what you mean. You found the right guy. I'd
Yeah.
say.
So like, yeah. And so like having someone that you can have a conversation with verbally and then immediately switch into having a conversation with musically is really, really important. And so some of the first stuff we did was like, we had this like really interesting exercise where it was just like this guitar motif where we would just like sit together and play it and then try to like basically complete thoughts. Like we had a launch to a solo that you would like trade off each time, Someone would play the launch, and then they'd play one chord progression of a lead, and the other person would play the launch, and they'd play one chord progression. And then you'd switch back and forth and do like up to 5 and then back down to 1. It's kind of like running suicides in basketball, but music.
Sounds like a great way to get to know someone at least.
Yeah.
We used to sit in this music store. We'd go to Specialty Guitars Plus.
Shout out.
Go get your guitars there. And we'd go and we would I remember sitting in the corner. We'd take 2 guitars that we really wanted to play, and we would try to describe the weather of the day. Yeah, could not afford. We would try to describe the weather musically, which is of course a really interesting exercise and a good way to like get to know how someone is gonna like translate their internal state into music.
Yeah.
So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we used to just sit there, and it was. I remember one time it was like kind of gray, and we were like trying to get like the feeling of the day through, which is like a really cool kind of thing to do. So
yeah, absolutely. So when you guys first interacted and started playing together, was this actually as Orion and the Melted Crayons proper?
I think so. So to speak into it, like a little bit of the history of the band is when I was moving from North Carolina, like Asheville area, to Charlottesville, I was in a few other projects, but was a little bit frustrated just because I felt like I was putting a lot into them, and then people would like go their own way and things would sort of dissolve as things do. And so I decided I needed to do something with my songs because I believed in them. I was like, I need to figure out a name to put them out under. So I recorded a 12-song like super acoustic thing at a coffee shop. It was just like our show. I just recorded it and put it out as like the Orion and the Melted Crayons demos. And so I started playing as that, which was kind of strange because sometimes it would be just me, and it was called Orion and the Melted Crayons because I wanted people to know where to find the music online. But yeah, for me, I kind of see it as like the crayons are the songs, but it's definitely become the crayons are the people. So I think we were promoting it as that. And at this point, we try to mostly promote shows as Orion and the Melted Crayons if we're playing with our band, like, you know, a full band thing. And if we're not playing as that, we just either call it one of our solo names or, you know, Orion and Elie or O and the Ryans if I'm playing with any of the Ryans that are in the band.
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah, just kind of curious if those 12 songs that you're mentioned had you been sitting on them for like a long time? Like, were these all songs that you had written?
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna look on Bandcamp because I don't actually know what's in there. I just realized they were out recently.
I've never heard of this particular record. Yeah, no. I think one of the things that's like happened is the material, like there was when I first met Orion, he had sort of like a block of original material, like a canon sort of like things he'd written that we would play, and we played that for like quite a while, like developing them, and because he's like, I feel like a really great producer. So I mean, both of us work like in studios recording and then also do the live stuff, and I remember like a lot of what I was like learning was basically he was like producing the performances in the sense of like he had a vision in his head, and then it was sort of like the conversation of like, okay, how do you translate this? And for a long time it was just him playing acoustic guitar and me playing violin, which is creates like a very sort of specific sound, and we played like that for like a year. I was on a gap year, and I was always like trying to figure out what this vision was. And then now, you know, he mentioned like there's like we try to play Orion and the Melted Crayons as like a full band because we got the drummer, the bass player. I play violin as well, but also playing more electric guitar, mandolin, and these songs have like I now get to like see them in their full, like in the way that he was hearing them and trying to like produce his like the best version given the like just the violin and the guitar. Now I get to hear it with the full thing, He's just made a record with a bunch of these songs that like is that sound.
Okay, so these have been around.
They've been around.
Okay.
Some of them, but also a bunch of new songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, I pulled up the Orion and the Melted Crayons. It's called the Space Lab demos because it was on West Main there. And you were asking how old the songs were at the time. The oldest song at that time was a song I wrote called "Going Home," that I wrote about moving back from Minneapolis to North Carolina when I had it was just, I got home and I think it was like New Year's Day, and I was like in my living room with my mom, and I don't know, she seemed maybe not to be having the best day, so I like started playing a funky bluegrass song about like how Prince ate wild rice in Minnesota, and that was like the genesis of this song. But some of the other stuff that was on there, actually track 7 off that is called Leela's Lullaby. It was a song I wrote for my niece because she was just born at that point, and that's actually on this new record that I've just made. And then there's a song called Burning Down that's on another recording that I put out later in that year. Yeah, so it looks like this. I did this show with a good friend of mine, Colby Pegg Joplin, and he was playing guitar.
Joplin.
Yeah. It's a good dude.
Good family name.
Yeah, he was playing guitar and violin on some stuff. So yeah, it was really interesting because when I was in North Carolina, I was doing a lot of like smaller shows. As the Melted Crayons, I was playing bigger stuff with my band at the time. It was called Slumber Drones, and I was playing in some other projects, but like performing my material, I was playing a lot of smaller shows where I was trying to make the sound as big as possible. So I'd like sit there and play guitar and play kick drum with my foot and like hi-hat with my other foot and just try to make the sound as big as possible. So that's the other thing I was looking for with people when I moved to Charlottesville, was people who could play multiple instruments. So I think I added Elie, and then our good friend Lewis Smith was playing with us a good deal at that point. So we were doing like this trio thing, and then I think our friend...
This is Lewis Smith of Kendall Street Company, correct?
Yeah.
For those who are listening, yeah.
They actually just dropped a record last Friday.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Check it out.
It's really good.
I shall.
But yeah, he was with us, and then a couple other friends would like kind of rotate in and out. But then, yeah, I just started using shows and recording opportunities as a way to figure out who had what I was looking for to be in the band. And that's kind of just where I'm at this point.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's obviously worked out, and it seems like you've kind of settled on at least the live instrumentation that really gets the songs.
I really like the version of the band that I like to play with is usually like 7 people, which is not tenable for a lot of touring, but it is tenable for, like, we did a show at the Southern right before the start of COVID. And that,
that's right, yeah.
you know, we had those 7 people. Yeah, it was a really good time, and it had the sound that I was looking for.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I remember being there.
Yeah.
So talking about your canon and your repertoire of originals, that's pretty extensive at this point. When did you start writing, and had you been playing for a long time at that point? And if you could just give some people some insight into your instrumental and songwriting history.
Yeah. So I come from a very musical family. I oftentimes say I'm the worst musician in my family. Like, I learned how to practice because I had to. Everybody else was just like sat down and did stuff, and I was like, but yeah, I started writing instrumental piano music like in the single digits probably. My mom's a classical piano player, so I would I remember very vividly laying on the stairs in my house and like listening to her play Vivaldi or Tchaikovsky, or like things like that. And so I would go over there and I was like working on I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash, like the kind of like soul song. I was like working on that, but then one day I was like, oh, I can just kind of play my own thing here. And so from that, I kind of really started expressing myself. And anytime I was feeling something, I would sit down at the piano and just try to do something. And then I started kind of writing lyrical songs when I started feeling like I had something to say, which was in middle school. I wrote one of the most important songs for me at that time, like I was like 13 or 14. And in high school, I was oftentimes acting as the songwriter in bands because I was playing drums and I wanted us to have something interesting to play. And maybe it came with like the production, but I was thinking about like how the whole thing worked together. I was like, people had really cool ideas and it helped them develop them into songs and like write songs for them. And then I went to college and, didn't feel like I had anything to musically say, or not anything, but didn't feel like I had that much to say musically. Lyrically. I had a lot to say musically. So I was writing a lot of instrumental music. And then at the end of college, or actually in college, I was taking some cool songwriting courses and really fell in love with lyrics and like poetry and that kind of stuff. And after college in Minnesota, I moved to North Carolina with the intention of finding my artistic voice. And so a lot of the stuff that I wrote, or that we perform now, or used to perform, I guess, at that time, was written on top of a mountain in North Carolina.
Wow.
During an intense period of soul searching and just like figuring out who I was as an artist. I play some stuff that's way older than that and some stuff that's way newer than that. But yeah, I pretty much, I just write as an observation of the world around me oftentimes, and like as a conversation with the world and people. So COVID made it a little bit weird for songwriting. I wrote some cool stuff, but a lot of the themes, the stuff I wrote were like, I want to go do something.
Of course, naturally, yeah.